Yo my dudes, welcome to another Korg Kross sound design edition. Today I'll be taking us back to the 80s, to that familiar, soft analog synth brass that many of us know and love. I will admit that I've been a little intrigued by the Toto brass sound, originally created on the Yamaha CS-80, and I believe I've cooked up something comparable here on the Kross. It's no secret that with the proper ingredients, the Kross does a more than adequate job at emulating analog synthesizers, and this is no exception. Perhaps you're asking yourself, why bother creating a custom brass synth patch when there are several to choose from in the factory presets? Well, the short answer is customization. But I'll also add that while many of the Kross presets are very good, I felt that none of them quite captured this particular sound correctly. Either they were too complicated in their design or simply lacked inspiration. I encourage all of you synth and Kross users to tweak, experiment, and try to get closer to the sounds you hear with your ears with help from these tutorials. Before we go on, I just want to put out a quick reminder to like the video if you feel this content's valuable. Also, to subscribe, and feel free to follow me on my social platforms. Let's get started. The first step you're going to want to take is to find an initialize patch in the Kross. So usually I go to User, I go down to my Open Patches, and I hit Enter. Voila! Okay, once you've found an initialized program, we're going to want to go to the Basic menu. So hit Menu, scroll down to Basic, hit Enter, and all we want to do is make this a double oscillator, and that's it. While we're at it though, let's just go 2 pages over to the scale type and set the random to 1. So the purpose of this setting is to just randomize the pitch ever so slightly to get us closer to that classic analog feel. The next step we want to do, step 2, is we want to select our oscillators. So let's hit Menu, go down to OSC, hit OK. And then we want to basically select 313 on both for Kross 2, and I'll put the number for Kross 1 in the margins since I don't have that off the top of my head. So you just want to set both of the multi-sample waves to SAW MG3. Also, if you want to figure out a quick shortcut to jump down, if you go to that circle with the arrows, and if you just hit the right arrow, it'll actually jump to a new category. So that's kind of handy. Alright, we've got our SAW Mode 3 oscillators and we're ready to continue. Okay, step 3. We want to go to our amplifier settings. So hit Menu, scroll down to P-Amp. So once we get to the amp menu, we're going to want to head on over to the ADSR menu. So this is where we can control the attack, decay, sustain, and release. Another quick shortcut is if you want to sync the oscillators, you can just hit sync both EGs. And now if we tweak one attack setting, it'll tweak for both oscillators, so we don't have to keep scrolling back and forth in between the two. Here are the settings you're going to want to create for your amplifier envelope. So we want to set attack to 12. We want to set our decay to 45 and the level to 80. We want to set our sustain to 62 and the level to 65. I also have the slope put to 5 and then the slope for decay set to 10. Sorry, I forgot to do that. And then for the release, we want to set that up to 46. Okay, so this is going to give us the amplitude envelope that we want for this sound. The next thing you want to do before going to the filter is set the velocity intensity to about 30. And on this one I kind of randomized it so the first oscillator is a different value. So what this does is this makes the key bed more sensitive to the pressure that you use to play it. So if you play softer, it's going to be quieter. If you play harder, it's going to be louder, which is super important. Alright, moving on to the filter, step 4. Alright, let's scroll down to the filter, and let's just start with the type of filter. The Kross likes to give us 24 dB filters, but with this type of analog sound we want 2 poles, not 4. So we want to basically go to the single filter for both oscillators, and then you want to do low pass, and we want the frequency to be set to around 24 and the resonance set to 30. I'm going to go into the other oscillator and just set that one really quick. So that one I set the resonance just a little differently. But unfortunately we can't hear much. It's going to change. Oops, I forgot to set this to single, so I'll just do that. Okay, so it's not that cool sounding yet, but just stay with me. It's going to get cooler. We're going to move into the envelope, and we're going to tweak that. Here we go. So there are a few different envelopes. We want to go to the filter EG sync time curve level, not to be confused with level mod or time mod. Okay, so here are the filter settings that you're going to want to engage. First, let's sync both EGs. It's already done, so we're good to go. We're going to want to set our attack to 30, and we're going to want to set the level to 95. We're going to want to go to decay, set that to 37. We're going to want to set that level to 91. Okay, let's go to our slope sustain. We're going to want to set that to 57. And we're going to want to set 35 for the level, but all the slopes I've set to 0. And then the release I'm going to do 45, and then I'll set that to 7. We really can't hear much at all right now. And the reason is we need to add filter intensity, because it won't apply the filter settings without filter intensity. So let's go ahead and go back over 3 screens to set our velocity and our intensity for the filter. We'll set the intensity first, and I have the intensity set to 16 on both. Getting a little better. Now let's go to our velocity and hit 35 on both. I think this will do the trick. There we go. We've got Africa. Okay, we've got a few more things to tweak on the filter. The next thing is really subtle. Go over to level modulation, and we just want to set the break to like 60 here on one oscillator, and on the other oscillator let's do 23. So this just kind of pushes that break a little stronger when you hit the keys harder. It's super subtle, so it's not a big deal if you don't do this part. Let's create a modulation so that when we push the mod wheel forward, it opens the filter. One of the more recognizable parts to the sound is right before the chorus. When the filter opens, you can kind of hear it go wow, and we're going to make a setting for that with our mod wheel. So you basically want to go to the page right here. It says basic modulation, and you want to set the AMS1 to mod wheel right there, and we want to set that to 33. And then on oscillator 2 you want to do the same thing, since we want both of the filters in both oscillators to open. There we go. It's kind of fun to play with. I think we're pretty much done with the filter, so let's move on. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create what is called Oscillator Drift. So if you listen to old analog synthesizers, the oscillators sort of drift in and out of tune, and this is an effect that we can emulate by using LFOs mainly on the pitch but also on the filter. Let's start with the pitch LFO first. So we want to go to the pitch menu, which is right there. What I want to do next is go to intensity and make that 0.1. Be sure to put both of the oscillators' intensity to 0.1. Now that the LFO knows what to apply itself towards, we want to go to the actual LFO menu. So scroll on down, and now we have our oscillator 1. We want to set that to sine, and we want to key sync it because this keeps the LFO behaving properly. To me, the sound just sounds tighter and more organized, more cohesive when that setting is utilized. Let's change the frequency. I have it set to 10, which is pretty low. This just means it's going to waver very, very slowly. Again, both oscillators. You can kind of hear it. Just barely drifts in and out of tune. It's kind of a cool feature. The next LFO we want to assign is our LFO2 to the filter. This is totally optional. You don't really need to do this, but I just like the way it sounded. So let's go back to our filter. Here's the page where we assign our LFO. So we don't want LFO1 because that's already being assigned to the pitch. So we want to go to LFO2, and we want to assign a property of 2 to both. So basically what this LFO is going to do is it's going to slightly open the filter just ever so subtly to kind of further create that sort of sensation of oscillator drift or slight detuning or slight sort of unevenness. Again, it's very subtle, it's not required, but I just thought I'd throw it in. Okay, next thing we do is we go back to the oscillator LFO menu. We want to skip past 1 and go to 2. We want to set that to sine. Pretty sure I key synced that one too. Yeah. So we got sine, and we want our frequency to be 20. So I just want to double check that I have everything set up properly. Sine on both, key sync on both. Check the LFO1. Oops. I forgot something. Okay, so let's listen to it. It's very subtle, but it is there. Let's open the filter a little more. Alright, I'm pretty pleased with what we've created so far. So the 7th and the final step is going to be putting on some effects. Let's go ahead and go down to the MFX, very last menu. We want chorus, it's number 64 for the first slot. We want our return to be all the way up. And we want the effect to be enabled. And I just left all the settings to their defaults for the chorus. For the second effect that we have, we want to hit a reverb. So let's go down to 110, reverb to Hall. It's a pretty badass one. Oops, forgot to enable. You always want to do that when you're employing effects on the Kross. And as far as the parameters of the reverb, I just kind of left them more or less at their defaults, but I cranked it up to 18 for the wet dry. final thoughts. During the verses, I tend to play with the filter more closed. And then when we get into the chorus, I like to open the filter up a little more, and then you can kind of hear a lot more of the sound once the filter opens up. But because of the dynamics of the tune, we want to close it back down again during the verse. Well, there you have it. We've definitely created the sound from scratch, and it sounds amazing to my ears. I hope you guys enjoyed it. That wraps up another Kross synth tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something. I know I did. And I'll catch you on the next one. Keep on synthin'.